Okay, are we on? Testing 1, 2.
There we go.
There we go. The title of this is "You Got a Friend." Now we all heard this song. I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to tell you the words because I want you to hear what the words of this song is. When you're down and troubled, and you need a helping hand, and nothing is going right, close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just have to call out my name. And you know, wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you got to do is call. You got a friend. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together, call my name out loud. Soon I'll hear and we'll be knocking at your door. You just call out my name. And you know, wherever I am, I come running to see you again. Sometimes when people go out of church and they say, boy, I wish so-and-so would have heard that message. But I don't want you to do that. I want you to take it personally. How does it apply to me? You see, I'm talking about caring about others. I'm convinced that it is a message needed by us all. As I prepare sermons, I often think of the things I need to hear. So this message is just as much for me as it is for you. You know, I have a nephew who's in Special Olympics, and there was a race with the children, a 220-yard dash. The contestants lined up in the starting line in the signal, and they started running as fast as they could. And one boy quickly took the lead and soon was about 50 yards ahead of everyone else. And as he approached the final turn, he looked back and he saw his friend had fallen and hurt himself on the track. The boy stopped and looked at the finish line. Then he looked back at his friend. People were hollering, "Run, Andrew, run!" But he didn't. He went back and got his friend, helped him up, brushed off the cinders. Hand in hand, they crossed the line dead last. But as they did, the people cheered because there are some things more important than finishing first. Ecclesiastes 4 verse 9, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falls, for he has not another to help him up. We do fall and we'll get knocked down at times in life. And how wonderful it is when we have a friend who cares enough to lift us up, dust us off, and help us continue on. Now if you turn to Philippians 2, verse 19 through 30, in it we'll listen to the Apostle Paul because he is such a good example of a tender and compassionate friend. In fact, someone had noted that there are more than 100 people listed as Paul's friends in the New Testament. And one of these reasons Paul had so many friends was because he was such a good friend himself. In Philippians 2 verse 19, but I trust in the Master Yeshua to send Timotheus shortly unto you, that I also may be of good comfort when I know your state. For I have no man like-minded who will naturally care for your state. For all seek their own, not the things which are Yeshua Messiah's. But you know the proof of him, that as a son with the Father, he has served with me in the gospel. Him, therefore, I hope to send presently, so soon as I shall see how it will go with me. But I trust in the Master that I also myself shall come shortly. Yet I suppose it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and companion in labor and fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants, for he longed after you all, and was full of heaviness, because that you had heard that he had been sick. For indeed he was sick near unto death. But Yahweh had mercy on him, and not on him only, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I send him therefore the more carefully, that when you see him again you may rejoice, that I may be the less sorrowful. Receive him therefore in the Master with all gladness, and hold such a reputation. Because of the work of Messiah he was near unto death, not regarding his life, to supply your lack of service towards me. So as we looked at Philippians, I want us to consider three important things. We need to cultivate a genuine interest in others. The first is that we need to cultivate a general interest in others. In verse 19, Paul says, I hope in the Master Yeshua to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. Now, Paul's a missionary. Sometimes missionaries write appeal letters. So it would have been logical for Paul to have written a letter saying, I'm in prison here at Rome and conditions are really bad. I need help. So please take up a special offering and send it to me quickly. But Paul doesn't do that. Instead, he is concerned about them. So he is sending Timothy to find out how things are going. And he wants so much for the news to be good. A lot of people, weekends are check on family times, married children call their parents, parents call their children, brothers and sisters call each other, and just to visit and hear about what is happening in each other's lives. And when you hear good news, the joy is all around. Lou Gehrig was first baseman in the New York Yankees, and he died on June 2nd, 1941. The doctors really didn't know how to treat it. So he was in the hospital for a long time, and they experimented with different drugs, trying to find out what would work. Just before he died, he called a friend, Bob Considine. He said, Bob, I have great news. The boys in the labs have come up with a new serum, and they're trying it out on 10 of us. It seems to be working well, 9 out of 10 of us. And his friend says, is it working on you? And Lou answered back, he said, no, about 9 out of 10. How do you like those odds? He was really joyful because 9 out of 10 were having help with the new serum. That kind of attitude is probably why Lou Gehrig is remembered with such fond memories, because he was such a good friend. In Philippians 2:3, let nothing be done through strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. In other words, be genuinely concerned about others. Do you ever ask yourself on Sabbath, why am I going to church? Am I going because I feel I owe a debt to Yahweh, so I'm trying to pay it back? Or because I'm carrying a heavy burden that I hope will be lifted? Or because I like the music and the fellowship and even the preaching. Why am I going? Why should we go? Well, if we are genuinely interested in others, the church becomes a training grounds where we learn how to help others. So when you come to church, be on the lookout. Maybe someone could use your help. Or if you're sitting near a guest here for the first time, introduce yourself and tell them, I'm glad you came. And let them know that if we can help them in any way to grow in the faith, that's why we're here. When you have the prayer list and learn of someone who is having a difficult time, you could write them a card, write them a note. Let them know that you'll be praying for them. Or if someone you know is struggling with a heavy burden of grief or loss, hold their hand, maybe weep with them. Just let them know that you care. Now realize that many of you are already doing it, and I praise Yahweh for you. But isn't it refreshing to know that we can care about each other without any hidden agendas? To care about each other because you're my brother or sister? Now things happen when you're genuinely concerned about others. First of all, you begin to forget about your own problems. We seldom realize that. We think that when I'm having trouble, I need to do something just for me, something extravagant or indulgent. But that's not the answer. The Bible teaches us, and psychologist is learning, that the quickest way to get rid of troubles is to become involved in helping someone else. The prophet Isaiah knew that a long time ago. Isaiah 58, verse 10. And if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry, and satisfy the afflicted soul, then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness be as the noonday. And Yahweh shall guide thee continually, and satisfy thy soul in drought, and make fat thy bones. And thou shalt be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water, whose waters fail not. And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt rise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. And secondly, when you're generally concerned about others, you will find that when you are in trouble, others will be good friends to you. So the first thing we learn from Paul's words is that we need to cultivate a genuine interest in others. The second lesson is that we need to offer sincere encouragement to others. In verse 20, Paul says, I have no one else like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. Paul is still talking about Timothy. Paul has discipled Timothy and watched him grow in his faith. Now Timothy is an adult and has a ministry of his own. Paul looks at him and says, I don't know anyone like Timothy. In fact, the New American Standard Version translates that verse to say, I have no one else of kindred spirit. And the two Greek words used there are words that mean same soul. Paul is saying Timothy and I are the same soul. We're kindred spirits, like-minded. Now we have different levels of friendships. Most, I suppose, are casual friendships. We know each other's name and we greet each other. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Neither of us may actually be fine, but we don't feel like unloading on each other. So we answer, I'm fine. That's a casual friendship. Some have close friendships where we enjoy going out and spending time with each other, doing things together. It's a deeper relationship, and we share things that wouldn't normally be shared with others. But there are very few same souls friendships where you're so close to each other that you think alike. You're motivated by the same things. It's scary sometimes to be around someone like that because they think so much like you that they know what you're going to say even before you say it. Now, I want you to know that you are truly blessed if that same soul friend is your husband or your wife. That's a very special blessing because you can come home and be who you are. You don't have to pretend. You're kindred spirits. There's love and understanding between you. Paul writes that Timothy is a same soul friend. Then in verse 21 he says, "For everyone looks out for his own interests, not those of Yeshua Messiah." I think Paul is presenting a contrast. He is saying most everybody else looks out for his own interests, but Timothy is not like everyone else. He's special. He's interested in you. We need friends like that. We need to be a friend like that, someone who will pick them up when they fall down and brush them off and hold their hand. Go on with them towards the finish line. Then there's one more lesson here. We need to practice an unselfish release. In verse 25 begins the story of Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus was a member of the church of Philippi. The church there was a strong supporter of the Apostle Paul. So when they learned that Paul was in prison, they sent Epaphroditus to be with him, to be the source of encouragement and assistance to him. But Epaphroditus wasn't able to help Paul very long because he became seriously ill. In fact, he almost died. Well, the news of Epaphroditus' illness got back to Philippi, and the people were concerned about him. And Epaphroditus became distressed about their anxiety about him. It would have been so easy for Paul to say, "Well, Timothy is leaving, and now you want me to go. You want to go too. What am I supposed to do here in prison all by myself? Who's going to help me?" But instead, Paul writes to the church of Philippi and says, "I'm sending Epaphroditus back to you, and I want you to welcome him and encourage him because he almost died for the cause of Messiah." A friendship that is really a friendship with release. It isn't a selfish or smothering kind of love. Those of you who are single and dating need to hear this. Husbands and wives need to hear this. And I think parents need to hear it too. There comes a time in every home when you have to let your children go. And that's really difficult too. I'd like to tell you that that's the end of the story, but it really isn't. Over in 2 Timothy 4, Paul is in prison again. And the circumstances are very different this time. His friends aren't there. I don't know where they are. Maybe they're too far away to get to him. Maybe they're in prison themselves. Or dead. Or maybe they just got tired of coming to the prison. Paul's been in prison a lot. So Paul writes these words in 2 Timothy 4, verse 16 and 17. "At my first answer, no man stood with me, but all men forsook me. I pray Yahweh that it may not be laid to their charge. Notwithstanding, the Master stood with me and strengthened me, that by me the preaching might be fully known, that all the Gentiles might hear, and I was delivered out of the mouth of a lion. Your best friend, the friend of friends, is Yeshua. He will never leave you or forsake you. And when you fall, he will pick you up, dust you off, and walk with you, hand in hand until you finish the line. You can bet that your life on it. Yeah, we bless.